Okay.
La, 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 la.
I pressed the buttons. Okay. This is the last meeting for this book. Woo. Um Me and Geraint are gonna go back and forth on the chapters, which is quite helpful since there's so many for this reading. Okay, Geraint, you want to start off with chapter 22?
Okay. Chapter 22. The lights have gone dark. Ryland is able to guide Rocky towards the control room, where he is able to find and turn on the emergency battery. This restores minimal function, and they realize that Hail Mary will soon decay its orbit into Adrian's atmosphere if they don't restore power soon. With a little more fumbling around in the darkness, Ryland finds the actual power generator, and much to his dismay, finds that the astrophage intake fluid smells like rotten food. Talmiba have infected the fuel supply through the cracks in the hull. Ryland and Rocky turn to despair, as this is bad, 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 bad. Thankfully, 31 hours of sleep deprivation cause Ryland to start singing a Beatles song as he drifts to sleep, and suddenly he remembers the extra fuel supply in the Beatles. Hope returns. After some much needed sleep, Ryland dons the Eva suit to spacewalk to the nose of the ship where the Beatles are stored. With the universe spinning around him every 25 seconds on the rotating ship, he is somehow able to retrieve all 4 Beatles. The job now falls to Rocky to reverse engineer the Beatles and create mini propulsion rockets to correct the ship's thrust vector. While Rocky is impressive, his species hasn't even invented the transistor chip yet, and working with him is like working with the world's best engineer from the 1950s. Despite this, Rocky is able to convert 3 of the Beatles into these mini rockets connected to control boxes, allowing him to navigate. The 4th Beetle, Ryland decides, will remain unadulterated for the original mission to return to Earth. Finally, Rocky dons his Eva suit back on and is able to xenonite hot glue the Beetles around the hull at 45 degrees angle, allowing for thrust and 3D maneuverability. Now for the final part of righting the ship. As the ship hasn't lost any inertia since Rocky's original heroic sacrifice to save Ryland, Ryland will have to relive the 6 Gs of gravity when he shortens the centrifuge spools. As the ship contracts and Rocky starts with the Beatles, Ryland passes out from the intense gravity. However, Rocky is the hero again and is able to miraculously zero out the ship's rotation and fix its elliptical orbit. Okay, Adrian, what question do you have?
My question kind of comes out more to a told you so.
Huh.
It's kind of like the obvious. Oh, we are using this fuel source that has a natural predator that we just found, and my ship was full of holes, and it ate our fuel supply, which is kind of what I was contemplating the last book, book club. So I guess my question is, how was this an oversight for them? And, was this expected to happen by anybody else but me?
So your question, just to paraphrase, is, am I really smart or what, guys?
Yeah, kinda,
Yeah.
yeah.
To answer your question, your fart smells great.
Thanks. I am drinking coffee.
I I feel like everything was happening in such a fast-paced way that I didn't really consider like, oh yeah, this hardy organism that's living in this atmosphere that they're trying to, get samples of. Surely this hardy organism won't somehow find its way into our tattered and battered ship. Now, granted, a lot of the tattering and battering did happen during the actual harvesting process. So they didn't have a lot of time, I guess, to consider the consequences of that. But they were certainly surprised when they happened later.
Mhm.
I think it's a little plot holy actually, because all those holes to the fuel are, outside in a vacuum of space, and they had to go 10 kilometers deep into the atmosphere of whatever the planet was called to get to Adrian.
Mhm.
So how, like if they were able to just really eat astrophage, wouldn't they have just been along the entire Petrova line and not specifically in this one region of the planet?
True.
Mm.
I think they needed some partial pressure, and the further out you got, it was too low. Is that?
I guess
Something
also
like
they never
that.
left the atmosphere, but
Well, I guess they were
they
low
were
enough.
higher at elevation.
Maybe they were low enough because all it takes is like one straggler, right? Because these things, breed up really well. I think it's discussed later, but so maybe it's like, they were dipping enough into the atmosphere that like the atmosphere was reacting to the IR light from their engines and like melting their ship. So maybe all it took was just like one or two stragglers. Maybe they were even attracted to the area because of the IR light. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess my understanding is the ship is lined with astrophage for radiation protection, and
Hmm.
there's pressure and oxygen. I don't even know if they have nitrogen for his normal environment. I'm assuming it doesn't. And so, I mean, it makes sense that, hey, he opened that container, it shot towards this hull breach where there's a vacuum, it gets into the astrophage surrounding the ship.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. It was that ice hole that he talks about, and I think the second to
Yeah.
last chapter or the last chapter that we read.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I was not surprised when it happened.
Hmm.
Like, in some ways, you can definitely tell that Ryland was kind of their third choice because he makes a lot of mistakes that I don't think the other two would have made, assuming they survived.
He
Yeah.
was also, drunk on pain meds and, just freshly extubated when
True.
you're in this container. I mean, I give a
They're making
little
a lot of
benefit of
decisions.
the doubt.
I think that would have been my first concern with anything that's like microbial in size and
Yeah.
having penetrations on my ship. Because you can't, I mean, they could be breathing this shit in. They don't know what it could do to their body.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's actually a really interesting angle, especially when you consider at the beginning of the book how when the astrophage was collected and brought to Earth and taken to Strat's / Ryland's lab, how many precautions they took. They changed the
Hmm.
air. Even was it argon they filled the room with? And he was
Yeah.
wearing a hazmat suit and like all these precautions, but it turned out like astrophage was okay. Um and so I don't know, it's kind of a funny like full circle moment where I guess the Talmiba aren't infecting or hurting Ryland necessarily, but it's affecting other things in the environment, which is partly what they were trying to avoid when they first started researching the astrophage. So I think that's pretty. I didn't really think about it until now. I think that's pretty interesting to think about.
Mhm.
Something I noticed or thought about from this reading was a lot of the stuff that happened like in this chapter and anytime they're just like MacGyvering things. It feels like a world building video game sort of thing where just are randomly able to harvest all these different things and turn them into like, yeah, duct tape, flashlight, shoelace. It's a copper electrical wire, sure. um
Okay, MacGyver.
Yeah.
and they don't do it quite as I guess tactlessly as that, but yeah, the way that they're able to interact with and manipulate their environment is just something I noticed.
Yeah, it's starting to lean towards movie logic at this point in the story. But, I think everything's guilty of that at some point.
Nah, all microbiologists are trained to weld things to ships in space. Of course. Yes. That was my second day in grad school. We did that. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on chapter 22? All right. Chapter 23, pages 382 through 394. Ryland has a flashback of showing up to a meeting where everyone was already there and silent. Strat reveals the investigation into the research building explosion has been concluded. Dubois was accidentally given 1 milligram of astrophage instead of 1 nanogram. Ryland asks if the launch will be delayed, and Strat says no, and that he will be the replacement science expert. Ryland tries to offer alternatives, but they're not viable. Strat says he can think about it until 5 p.m., and it is 12:38 p.m. Back in the present, Rocky and Ryland are using the beetles to navigate back to Rocky's ship. Ryland checks his Talmeba experiments and is devastated at the results. Talmeba cannot survive in the atmosphere of Venus or Three World. Rocky punches the wall and says, "Anger!" They've determined that they will keep working. Ryland has another flashback of when he went to Strat to reveal his decision on whether he was joining Project Hail Mary's crew. He tells her no, and scrambles for reasons why. Strat calls him a coward and says he's full of shit. She says she understands he's scared, but that he's going, and if he tries to leave, they won't let him. He does try to leave, and a guard stops him. She tells him while he is in the coma, he'll also be given temporary amnesia drugs, so he won't be able to remember that he refused to go. And by the time he does remember, he'd likely be too committed to the mission to stop. The guard drags him away to a holding cell. Okay, Marvelous, what is your question?
Jesus Christ, Dr. Strat. On the other hand, like, how do you feel about this revelation? About him being a coward and Dr. Strat being like, I don't give a shit, the world's ending, you're going.
Kind of in line. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just say I fucking loved it. I loved that this is the way it turned out. There's a whole Strat romance, angle, but like, yeah, fuck yeah, he's a coward. He went to PhD school, and just because people disagree with his findings, he went to become a junior high school teacher. He chose this authority position to, lord over junior high people. I mean, I feel like it does fit with this character, and I actually loved this twist. I was like, oh shit, and just my 2 cents.
I guess I feel like it makes sense, but that doesn't change that I was shocked. Like looking back at 2020, like, yeah, okay, I can see that being the thing that had happened. But I was surprised that that's what happened, because in a lot of ways this story has been a tale of optimism and friendship and things just seeming to work out somehow, MacGyver or otherwise. And then it was like, yeah, actually, he didn't want to go. And they had to give him amnesia. It wasn't even the coma. That's like a huge plot of this book, is that the coma that this brave astronaut was in to go, to do this mission was like giving him amnesia. But no, it wasn't even the coma. They gave him amnesia on purpose because he was like, oh, I gotta stay on Earth to teach the kids, ? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't really have good reasons. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I was glad Strat called him out on the kids thing. Like, you're worried about a small classroom of kids instead of, the whole world of kids.
Plus, it's been like, I don't think we get an exact timeline on how long it is from the discovery of astrophage to liftoff, but he's already not. It's got to be at least a couple of years. So like, he's already not been a teacher for that long.
True.
And didn't earlier in the book he have that big moment of even working on astrophage because he was inspired by the kids?
Yeah. That's true. He left the classroom and demanded Strat leave him was it 3 astrophage?
Yeah.
Was worried about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think he genuinely just was like scared to die, just as he says.
Mhm.
And it's very in line with what Strat, you know, the way she acts with everyone else. It does seem like she waited to the last possible minute to like even make that the backup plan. But, you know, she had to do what she's been doing, which is make tough decisions nobody else is going to make, even to people she cares about. So,
Yeah.
you know, he was the best option there was. And honestly, yeah, he's a coward, but that's a very human reaction to this. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he didn't volunteer. Like, he's been there to help. He probably thought he was in the clear. Oh, I helped get everything to this point. You know, now we wait and see if everything gets solved by the professionals. He never saw himself as, you know, one of those people. So, yeah, I feel like a lot of people would probably react that way. You know, but also he's been, you know, the prerequisites were all there for him to go. And he had all that information, so he should have anticipated this to some degree, you know, as a potential reality.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this did give me the thought that this might be why he survived versus why the other two didn't.
Mm,
Because Strat straight up tells him, "We're going to sedate you before you get, you know, blasted off." And I'm like,
Mm.
so I'm assuming they have actual doctors there. So he was put under by an actual medical professional while the other two had to do it themselves.
Or with the
mhm.
robot.
Or with the
Yeah.
robot thing, like that's probably why he lived, because as good and well trained as those other two were, they're not medical professionals.
Yeah,
And they, plus, the robots not being perfect.
Maybe the amnesia drug was protective in some way.
yeah.
Well, doesn't she say that he's not getting it until he wakes up?
Near the end.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
He forgot
Um,
to be in a coma. That's why he woke up.
I guess I have one question. It was a plot hole, but why didn't Strat tell him he had the coma resistance gene? Because I was assuming it's like, oh, she was looking out for him. This was her one selfish thing in this role. Wanted him to stay with her or something. I
Oh.
don't know. But like, why not tell him if you're willing to sacrifice him all along?
Maybe it
I
is
don't think she
that.
was.
Yeah.
I, I don't think she was willing to sacrifice him. I don't think she wanted him to go.
I don't think
Yeah, I think
anyone
she kind of
did.
says that later that like she legitimately didn't want to be doing this.
I think it weighed heavily on her, but all she could do was keep a strong back and, you know, push forward through it because that's what she was assigned to do.
At the beginning of the chapter, when he walks in, like I imagine when he walks into that meeting at the beginning and like everyone else is already there and silent. I imagine they've probably been there like all day discussing his fate or what they're gonna do. And he's,
Mm,
they told him to get there basically like when they would be done figuring it out. But I kind of feel like the way they presented that was to show that everybody else had been there for quite a while.
Yeah.
A question I had was, um, do you think Strat was able to like mentally cope with it later, or what about the other project members?
Mm.
Like that's pretty
I don't know.
heavy.
Told
She
anyone?
like Strat's pretty hardcore. Maybe she would be okay, but everybody else involved in the decision to send him. Now I guess maybe nobody else knows that he said no. Maybe that's the distinction. Is only she knew maybe that he said no.
I think that would probably, because she straight up tells him what she's going to tell the others, and I think that's, well, the case
Oh,
essentially.
Yeah.
Mhm.
damn.
Yeah, because Yao said that he's not having anyone in his crew not willing to go.
Yeah, that's a
And she
pretty
said
heavy
she
burden.
wasn't ready for that. Yeah. She was like, oh, I wasn't anticipating him saying that, but, you know, I would just say this.
Damn.
I wasn't
Yeah, she,
anticipating him being cool.
Although in hindsight, I'm a little surprised they let both Dubois and Annie do that experiment together, given how
Yeah. It was like testing a fail, safe thing, like high
Yeah.
risk, you know.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are they the ones testing it? Let engineers or other
Yeah.
people do that.
Yeah.
But
They probably wouldn't have been there together if they weren't, so obviously fucking,
yeah.
as they've said. So,
Actual Congress.
mm, sexual Congress, okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions or comments on chapter 23?
Yep. I'll be right back, but please continue.
Okay. All right, Geraint, if you want to do chapter 24 summary.
Okay. Chapter 24. We flash back to the present. Ryland finally remembers. He is a coward through and through. Worse yet, Strat was right all along, and her plan worked perfectly. Rocky sees the moping Ryland and is able to cheer him up about their failed Talmiba experiment. Adrian life is strong. Talmiba is strong. They can find a way to keep it alive. With renewed enthusiasm, Ryland sets the ship to spin and creates artificial gravity for experimentation during their 11-day return to Rocky's ship. The Hail Mary is now a Talmiba party bus, and by God, they're going to throw a fiesta. Ryland begins working with renewed passion. He discovers that Talmiba are toxic to nitrogen gas. Using a metaphor of antibiotic resistance, Ryland tells Rocky that they might be able to select for Talmiba with nitrogen resistance and breed those cell lines over and over to develop more resistance. They need to make at least 8% nitrogen resistance to save Rocky's planet. Rocky skitters away to make 10 huge xenonite breeder tanks. During a brief intermission, Ryland turns his attention to pondering if he can somehow eat Iridian food. He has a long 4-year journey home, and coma slurry ain't gonna cut it. Unfortunately, Rocky's food contains slightly unhealthy heavy metals, like thallium. Coma slurry it is. During the trip back, they're able to breed up to 0.6% nitrogen resistance, aka Talmiba 06, before approaching Rocky's ship. With a great deal of foresight, Rocky had set up his ship to automatically flash its engines every 20 minutes to help identify it on the return trip from Adrian. We also learn Rocky's ship doesn't have a name. You wouldn't name your chair, so why should you name your ship? Touche, Rocky. Finally, Ryland sees a faint flash in the distance and sets the ship towards it. Okay, Andy's clone, what question do you have?
It is I, Andy's clone. What was your initial reaction to the Talmiba dying in the Venus/3 world atmosphere? Did you have any ideas on a solution before they outlined their plan?
I mean, it was one of the two solutions I thought that they would go with. The other solution, so I figured like, okay, they'll figure out a way to breed resistance, but I was also thinking maybe they'll figure out like an enzyme or something
Mm.
that maybe they can
Mm-hmm.
synthesize. Um, but they didn't end up going with that one.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. I was curious to keep reading and find out.
All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Chapter 24. Okay. To chapter 25, page 407 through 427. The nitrogen survivability experiment is working. They're up to 3.5% nitrogen resistance, which meets the requirement for Venus. Next, they want to get to at least 8% for 3 World. Rocky is making a power converter with hopes Ryland will let him take one of the laptops back with him, and Ryland says sure. If all goes according to plan, they will be parting ways soon to return to their respective planets. A small time skip, and they're up to 5.2% nitrogen resistance. Ryland is trying to clean out the contaminated fuel bays. Another time skip, and the fuel bays are all cleaned and resealed, supposedly. Ryland tests for any contamination and finds 2 fuel bays still contain Talmeba, despite his best efforts. He decides to try once more to clean the remaining affected fuel bays. We time skip to Ryland saying screw it and opting to jettison fuel bay 5. He just can't seem to fully sterilize it. Ryland is stressed. The decreased fuel bay count, which is now -3, means he'll be going slower and won't have enough food. Rocky hears Ryland's frustration and says he can make replacement fuel bays out of metal. Ryland goes for a nap. Another time skip, and Ryland has just finished installing the new fuel bays Rocky made. A check on the nitrogen survivability experiment reveals they are up to 8.25%, which is above what Rocky needs for 3 World. They are very happy, and Rocky says, "Fist me!" And Ryland says, "It's fist bump, but yeah!" They celebrate their success. Ryland drinks Ilahina's vodka, and Rocky dons a fancy outfit adorned in rocks and crystals. Rocky wants to visit each other, but Ryland reminds him of human lifespans being shorter. Rocky says, "Oh, so we enjoy our remaining time together and then go save planets. Then we are heroes." Finally, it's time. Ryland and Rocky part ways, each with their self-contained breeder colonies to save their home worlds. All right, Geraint, what's your question?
I felt there was lots of good questions for this chapter, but the one thing that stuck out to me the most is how willing Ryland was to give a laptop with all of humanity's information to this alien race, which he kind of barely knows. And that's my
Yeah.
question for you guys. Would you give a laptop with all of Wikipedia, all of humanity's biology and technology to an alien race where Rocky even said some of them are selfish beings? And I guess, yeah, would you guys do that?
Um, I think I would if my first impression of a race was Rocky. I mean, he he could have just as easily tried to kill Ryland or use him, or I even thought he might try to sabotage his generator. As friendly as he's been, Ryland's admitted he doesn't know his emotions fully that well, so who knows what his true intentions were at any point. But he ended up saving his life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, multiple times, and him saving his life. So I feel like even if there were bad actors on his planet, Rocky could have definitely, been the one to mitigate any problems. And, I think I would have. If not, illogical, reasoning, just like having the sentimental aspect of Rocky being my friend, I probably would have done it.
I also probably would have done it, especially because, like, we kind of did that with Voyager. I mean, we didn't put all of humans' knowledge on there, but we did tell the aliens where to find us. So, like,
True.
um, we're just like that as a species. But also, I think they had like 4 or 5 laptops. A lot of that information they're not going to actually be able to do anything with
True.
just because of the differing environments. And like, okay, maybe they will go try and visit Earth one day,
Or Earth
but
will try to visit the other place. I don't. We don't know. I guess how much information Ryland put about his experience on the ship. Maybe it was like all recorded and he attached a video of that. That would be cool.
Yeah.
I guess I'd be asking myself, is this my gift to give? Like,
True.
We got Xenonite in return.
okay, I mean,
I
I
mean,
don't
it's
know
a pretty
how
superior
equivalent exchange
material
that
in
is.
a lot of ways.
I'm sure if Rocky had something similar to a laptop, he would have given it to Ryland.
Yeah.
100%. But he just they didn't have that technology.
And
It does make me wonder if the people on Earth will ever, you know, figure out like how to, I guess, like backwards sort of like figure out how the hell to make this like wonder material.
Mm, true.
but also the Iridians will have to do the same because like all of our science and stuff only works in Earth or Earth-like conditions. Like they would have to use their own materials and their own versions. You know, they would have to completely to make a computer of their own. They would have to just, you know, we're basically showing them that it's possible and how we did it, but they still have to figure out how to make it with their own materials for their environment. So it's not, you know, they get the laptop and there's like a ton of information on there about like how we do things on Earth, but a lot of that does not, you know, directly translate. They just have to see like, oh, it's possible to do this. Okay, so how do we try what's our equivalent? I think I'd probably
And that
give the laptop, and I'd be happy to send the Xenonite back to Earth as well. I mean, that seems like a pretty solid find.
Yeah.
imagining a Project Hail Mary sequel where Rocky's people finally make it to Earth, but it's like 100 years later, so they're doing everything correct based off of what the laptops told them, but now of course it's 100 years out of date.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's little
I just think
cockroach
that would be
people.
cute and funny, like
Yeah.
another feel good sci-fi story.
There could always be a sequel. I mean, this book came out somewhat recently, so who knows? I would be happy to have some kind of follow up. I think that would be interesting, or additional, you know, additional information, maybe like what was going on Earth during that whole time, like how bad did
Hmm.
things get and stuff. I think there's various ways that an interesting story could be told.
Yeah. Like from Strat's perspective or something, kind of like that Twilight book that's from Edward's perspective.
Midnight Sun.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
What?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's a different question. But I was just like, what do you guys think of Rocky's celebratory attire?
Funny.
It's very cute.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Like a D&D outfit.
I love that for some reason, despite the fact that they can't like see,
Hmm.
they've still decided that clothes are important.
Mm,
I
Yeah.
mean, obviously they probably serve some kind of like practical purpose since, we started wearing clothes to protect us from the elements, but like they don't seem to need clothes in the same way we do, so the fact that they still wear them is kind of endearing.
Hmm.
Maybe it's modesty for them too, because if you know, it like with their whatever echolocation, hearing, sense, or something, you know, you can, if somebody's just there not wearing anything, that's like a different picture. Or maybe you're seeing stuff about their internal organs that's considered like private information or something. So they like wear clothes as a form of modesty and being private, like hiding some of their personal internal information.
I wonder if they have a red light district equivalent, like a, you know,
what the fuck?
lower rough district, because they go by textures, so.
Mm,
Interesting. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on chapter 25?
I appreciated that this was an optimistic, light beat, lighthearted chapter. It
Mm,
was, they won. They're celebrating. They're making jokes. Sometimes unintentionally, like fist me, or even, I can't remember. It was this chapter. I think it was this chapter where Rocky's like, why you leaky face blob? I'm a scary space alien or whatever. Or you're a blob that leaks or something along those lines. I just really like the tone shift where it's like, hey, this is working. We can do this.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
Not all hope is lost.
Mhm.
All right. Geraint, you want to do chapter 26?
Chapter 26. All right, we flash back to Earth. Strat has come to visit Ryland in his jail cell. Without invitation, Strat tells Ryland that she was a history major in undergrad. People in the present have it easy, as for millennia, humanity's sole focus every day was to secure food. Once the Antarctica nuclear fallout kills the ocean biome, humanity will have to turn to war over food again. Ryland tells her, go to hell. She agrees to. Everyone on Earth will be in hell soon enough. However, he will be going to Tau Ceti. Back in the present, Ryland is now 18 days into his 4-year voyage home. He has tried to make a daily routine to help pass the time. He also has the entire world's video game collection to fall back on if needed. Given that Yal and Ilukina died from their comas, why risk going back into one? His thoughts turn to him missing Rocky, as he realizes that Rocky was really his only real friend. Even Dmitri, who he liked, would be 26 years older when they last met. In the final part of his daily routine, he turns off the spin drive so he can use his Petrovoscope to look at Rocky's ship and the engine flash before he disappears forever. 2 more weeks pass. Ryland tries out the coma slurry and realizes he has 3 years of eating food that tastes like aspirin to look forward to. He turns his attention to the Talmida mini farms that will fit on the beetles. We learn Rocky made iridium steel containers rather than xenonite containers, as Earth scientists don't have any tools that can safely cut through xenonite. Ryland starts to mount these mini farms on the beetles, and then sets to begin refueling them with his fresh supply of astrophage from Rocky. As he opens the big old container of astrophage, also known as Bacoa, he is struck by a familiar and awful smell. The Talmiba are loose again. Okie doke, Amarillo's clone.
It is
What do you got?
Amarillo's clone. So she sent me her question, and it relates to the beginning part of this chapter, Strat's history lesson and all that. Do you think Strat did the right thing in forcing Ryland onto the mission, the greater good over the life and will of someone else? If you do think she did the right thing, could you have done the same in her place? Yeah, I feel like I probably could have.
Yeah.
Just because it's
The neat.
like, I mean, it's a terrible thing,
Yeah.
but also it's like, in that situation, I mean, what do you like? Yeah, we don't want to, we don't want to bother this one guy, so we'll all just die. No worries. Like,
I feel like if I were in Ryland's position, I would feel exactly like he does and being terrified to go, but I wouldn't actually be brave enough to tell Strat no either.
hmm,
So then I probably would have died because then I wouldn't have been hooked up to sleep by a professional.
Mm,
Because I'm going with that theory still. Although I guess if I was in Strat's position, I would have more of a backbone. In which case, I probably would do it. Like it is a huge dick move and not something that people would be okay with in any sort of normal circumstance. But when you're in this kind of crazy end of the world situation, you kind of just like I guess that's just what desperation looks like.
yeah. Does anybody feel like they wouldn't be able to do it, or does everybody feel like they would? Jesse, I saw your thing light up.
Oh no, I would agree with you. I definitely would. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the Earth version of the trolley problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
yeah, gotta give up this guy for the rest of the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like you're, oh, go ahead, Marlon.
I was gonna say, I think it's the right thing to do. I wouldn't want to make the decision though. I wouldn't want to be the one forcing that upon somebody.
Oh, yeah.
I will say, like, Strat's
That's fair.
made a bunch of these hard decisions that negatively impact a lot of innocent people at this point. nuclear fallout of Antarctica, whatever Sahara Desert crap. I mean, I'm sure there's been a lot of innocent, bystanders hurt already in her wake, and so at this point, she's probably, what's one more.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it
What's
really is
one
just a
more?
greater good type
Yeah.
of thing.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yep.
All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Chapter 26.
Give me a second. Let me.
Okay. To chapter 27, pages 438 to 442. This is a fairly short chapter. Ryland responds to the Talmiba contamination quickly. He turns off the ship, evacuates the air supply, and uses a lethal amount of nitrogen to sterilize. He jettisons the contaminated astrophage container, waits 3 hours, and turns the ship's breakers back on. He puts the breeder containers and beetles into plastic bins pumped full of nitrogen and is at a loss for where the source of contamination is. All right, Kel, what was your question?
Did anyone think for a second maybe Rocky did something?
Oh,
Ooh, that's a good
shit.
question.
Yes.
Damn.
A thought entered my mind.
Rocky.
Nah,
Not
Yeah.
Rocky.
Nah, that's the boy.
They just fisted each other.
Oh.
True.
I think I did wonder, but I was also kind of like, no, Rocky wouldn't. But what if?
I couldn't think of anything, and let me just say that the thingy evolving to walk through walls was
I had
not on
faith.
my list of things
Mhm.
that would happen.
I mean, it was a metal that Ryland didn't fully understand, so it's not something he could have accounted for because that wouldn't normally happen.
The first
Yeah.
The first theory I had, I didn't think about Rocky sabotaging anything at all. My first theory was that Ryland was colonized by the
Yeah,
Talmiba.
infected.
Yeah.
Farted it out.
So, oh god. Well, it's either, living on his skin or in his hair or in his or like inside of him in his mouth or something. And that that was the source of the contamination, that it was Ryland himself. Like that was my first idea about it.
Oh, we lost Jesse.
Yes, I think he was stuttering a little bit. We'll see if he's able to hop back in. Does anyone else have any uh, other theories about like what was going on with the contamination at this point in the story?
Well,
No.
I think part of me was just like, wait, does that mean Rocky's also infested? Because at this point we don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's infested. So I'm like, ah, that means it might be Rocky too. No. Even though part of me did wonder if Rocky suddenly pulled a fast one on them.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess I kind of just assumed Ryland made another mistake, like, slight oversight. And ultimately he did, but, something else just from him being human and to err as human.
Hmm. I just thought with the length to the end of the book being so little, it had to be some type of like, you know, Daniel the android from Alien type of situation that maybe the AI did something, I was speculating, but
Yeah. Uh, I also wasn't expecting a new problem this late into the book, chapter,
exactly.
27.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
neither.
That's why I was like, something's got to be resolved very quickly if this is happening right now, or it's about to go to hell.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think once the Talmiba invasion part 2 started, I think this is the point where I was like, ah, okay. I know how the book's ending now.
Oh god. I'm gonna message Jesse real quick to see if he can send me his question because I think his is for 29. 1 second. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on chapter 27?
Hmm.
All right. Geraint, will you do the summary for chapter 28?
Guess.
I guess.
All right. It's been 3 days since the Great Talmiba escape. Ryland considers the breeder farms versus the mini farms as the culprit. However, the mini farms are hermetically sealed, and the breeder farms have worked for months without issue. After some quick tests, the large farms have perfectly normal amounts of Talmiba and astrophage in them. Could Rocky have made an engineering mistake with the mini farms? No, that seems incorrect as well. Ryland, though, decides to be thorough. Could Talmiba be leaking out of the Xenonite tanks? After a 6-hour nap, his experiment proves true. Talmiba are leaking out through all the Xenonite breeder tanks. How can the Xenonite walls, designed to withstand 29 atmospheres of Rocky's homeworld pressure, be leaking? Ryland drops his breakfast burrito as the answer dawns on him. Just as he has been selectively breeding nitrogen resistance, he has also been selectively breeding the ability for Talmiba to survive and hide in Xenonite. He sets up a quick experiment with astrophage sandwiched between 2 Xenonite discs and 2 plastic discs. Talmiba 82.5 was able to slurp down all the astrophage in the Xenonite discs. Okay, not a problem. Ryland can just use normal materials and reseal everything. Good thing Rocky is such a great engineer and made the design so simple. Oh god, Rocky's entire ship is made of Xenonite.
Damn.
Okie doke. Marlin, what is your question?
Uh, my question was, aside from the last page of the chapter, did everybody else have a growing feeling of despair for Rocky during this chapter?
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point, what did you think was going to happen? Like, did you think
Yeah.
Ryland was going to do something about it?
Well, who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Adrian.
Okay. Yes. Once he said the whole, "Oh, it's going out through the Xenonite," I was like, it just kind of like, and it's already been however long. I think it's been like 2 months at this point that they've been traveling away from Tau Ceti. So it was like, there's a good chance Rocky's dead, and trying to save him at this point might doom them both. But I also had the feeling he might try to go save him anyway. Considering everything they went through together.
Yeah, I felt like at this point when there's the realization that something probably is also happening with Rocky's ship, I was like, there's no way that Ryland is gonna leave Rocky out to dry. Like there's I feel like Rocky might be the only other person or living thing, whatever we consider Rocky to be. I guess he seems to be a person of some kind. Um, might be the only person Ryland has ever loved, like in a real vulnerable way. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was worried about Rocky, but I just there's no way Ryland is gonna let like Rocky die or be harmed seriously or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there just wasn't any situation where I felt that he would leave Rocky out to dry, especially once he knew like exactly what was causing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe if it had been leaking out of one of the stainless steel or not stainless steel, whatever that other material was he made the canisters out of, like,
Iridiums.
maybe then it wouldn't have been an issue, but once we knew for sure that it was the Xenonite, you're just like, "Ah, fuck." Because Rocky didn't make any of the other containers for himself because he didn't need to, or thought he didn't need to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I will say, as like with everyone else, had this developing panic. Oh fuck, what about Rocky? And then I was like, wait, he has been staring back at Rocky's ship every day for like a month or so. This is he knows where he's heading, his velocity and everything. So maybe there's a chance. So
Oh.
I guess a follow up too is, would you do the same thing Rylan did? Would you go back, or would you just keep on going back to Earth, back to your, you know, life with your peers? And
could you genocide a planet? Is that what you're asking me, Marlon?
yeah,
He had the Beatles. He sent the Beatles.
No, could we genocide Rocky's people?
Oh.
yeah. Like, could you leave Rocky and go back to Earth, or would you go back and save Rocky too? Like
It's just not only Rocky in that situation, though.
Yeah.
but you don't owe anything to Rocky's people.
What the fuck? They made
You
Do
owe
I
your
Rocky?
owe
survival.
anything to
Yeah.
them? No, but I also know that I'm a giant sap who likes to see the good in all things. So if I left them to die, I'd probably end up killing myself in the guilt. Like,
And it's
and I
Rocky.
am not the type of person who wants to do that. Like, I don't think I could live with myself knowing that I genocided another planet, no matter how many times I told myself Rocky was probably okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. You wouldn't know,
Mm.
right? You would just go, man, I hope it worked out for them, but I'll never
Oh,
know.
fuck.
You
And
just
go back to
Meanwhile,
just
Earth.
deep
casually whistle as you walk away.
Yeah.
Like, whip.
I'm just asking
Meanwhile,
if
deep
anybody,
down, like
did the same.
it's the Xenonite that's fucked up, and that isn't okay.
I think that if I were in Ryland's position, based off of how everything else on this adventure had gone, I would go help Rocky, because it's not like Ryland is urgently running out of food tomorrow. Like, they will figure out something to feed him, or some workaround, or some alternative. And so it's like, yeah, you have the Beatles, you have the tools you need to inform Earth of your findings, and you also, figured out this issue, protected the fuel supply, and so you are able to go help Rocky as well. But that's also kind of, even if you, I don't know, even if you figure out a way to have food and stuff, there's a ton of variables, and like the odds of you making it back to Earth, you're kind of like accepting you're not gonna go back to Earth. But Ryland didn't have a lot of close connections on Earth anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Like he said, he'd just be going back for and I told you so, and to be smarmy to fucking Strat. So
mm-hmm.
There's something to being around other human beings,
True.
So
Yeah.
well, I mean to him. I'm talking about just from his perspective.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, even from his perspective, like, humans kind of need to be around other humans. It's
There's something about feeling the wind, the sunlight, certain
yeah,
smells. I mean, there's a lot
yeah,
that you're gonna give up. Yeah.
True.
So maybe he's really strong in that way, that he's, yeah. I mean, it's a big sacrifice to not go to your comfort home planet, where you were raised.
yeah.
But then again, it might be a totally, completely different place after after everything that's happened. So it's
Yeah,
like,
you got to think about everybody who's dead, the like circumstances of you being there in the first place, assuming that I too was also forced to go in the same way that Ryland was. And then also knowing that I have to live for 4 years off of that fucking slurry.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
I mean, also, I'm just, I mean, I know he's more fully developed, but like, I'm just thinking 26 years of time. Like 26 years ago, I was 10 years old. I don't know if some people weren't even born yet. But, I mean, would I even know my family at all? Like, you know, what they developed to like and interests, or, you know, I mean, I just feel like it'd be such a different world to come back to that, I don't know.
Yeah. Like you'd be alone anyway. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess you can make new human connections like once you're there, but I guess you could make new human connections on Arid, or not human connections, but you know what I mean. Social animal
Mhm.
connections on Arid as well. But it's, yeah. Now, we mentioned it at a prior meeting, but Ryland maybe is asexual or something, so lacking a partner in that capacity maybe doesn't affect him. Like he wasn't picking up what anyone was putting down as far as like lock-in, and if, there was supposed to be some sexual tension between him and Strat or something.
Mhm.
So maybe that, isn't an effect he would have to worry about. Never seeing another human.
Yeah. And who knows what would be left of Earth? And anybody he did know, maybe Strat would be arrested. Maybe,
Yeah.
none of the people that were part of the program would even be alive. Who knows? There are so many variables, whether
Mm-hmm.
he was going back to the same Earth or not.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Chapter 28. All right. Chapter 29. Pages 453 through 469. Ryland constructs new Talmeba farms out of sheet aluminum, so his contamination problem is fixed. But he is sick with worry over Rocky. His engines should still be showing on the Petrovoscope, but they aren't. He imagines the Talmeba have obliterated Rocky's fuel supply. He's going crazy trying to figure out what to do. Should he sacrifice himself to save Rocky or guarantee his own survival? He decides to go to Rocky. He launches all his beetles towards Earth and starts searching for Rocky's position. After some trial and error, he gets to the right general area and MacGyvers an IR light radar system where he blasts his engine in a given direction and sees if any light bounces back. He locates Rocky and heads in that direction while anxiously tidying up. He has to do his radar maneuver several more times to get Rocky's precise location, but it works. Ryland dons his EVA, attaches a tether to his ship, and leaps to Rocky's ship. He bangs on the hull and tells Rocky he is on the usual radio frequency. Rocky is shocked, elated, and touched. Ryland returns to the Hail Mary and Rocky builds an airlock over. Rocky is a mess and covered in Talmeba gunk from trying to clean his ship. Ryland explains how they'd accidentally selected for both nitrogen resistance and xenonite permeability with their experiments. Ryland tells Rocky to grab his stuff and that he's taking him to Arid. When Ryland says he won't return to Earth and will die of starvation most likely, Rocky refuses that outcome and says Iridians will find a way to save him and make his food. Rocky comes up with the idea that maybe Talmeba are edible. Ryland thinks it might work. Rocky says, "Fist my bump," and Ryland says, "Fist bump. It's just fist bump." All right, Jesse, what is your question?
Now this book's been pretty much upbeat and positive the whole time, but did anyone else have like a subtle dread that maybe Rocky didn't make it?
Oh, God.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
A little
definitely.
bit. Like, I believe
Yeah.
in the happy ending, but there's still a part of you that always goes, "But what if?"
Mhm.
Not everything's perfect.
That would have
Not to
been
mention with
sad.
the whole,
Yeah.
like, eating Talmiba thing, I was just like, "Okay, that seems a little far-fetched even for the rest of this fake science that we've had."
Yeah, it would have been a
Yeah,
heartbreaking
I
end.
didn't really
Go ahead, Jesse.
I was with the eating Talmiba, I was like, they're talking about eating microbes. Like, I get to a certain degree, but, like, I need that explained a little more.
Yeah. And did he even need to have to eat Talmiba? I mean, the trip to Arid's shorter than Earth. Like, he should have enough coma slurry to not need to eat microbes. I don't
I think
know.
it was more once he got there.
Mm-hmm. To be able to synthesize something edible.
Yeah, can't they just synthesize some glucose and, I mean, amino acids? Like, I don't know, it's not that hard.
Kira, it's not that hard. Come on, guys.
Guys, you don't have a
Also,
lab and some petri dishes? Come on.
also, he was like real doomsday about eating the rest of his good food and then be getting the slurry. It's like, why wouldn't you just, do slurry 6 days and like space out your
Yeah.
good food? Like, what's wrong with you?
I thought the same thing.
Fucking psycho.
Yeah. Yeah, jeez. Like eating the dessert first and then, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Stagger the meals.
Vic,
Trying to think how much food that they actually, like, gave them, like, how much human food did he say that he had left? Do you guys
It's like
remember?
40 days of like more solid food and then quite a while of the coma slurry because like, 2 other people died and so they had a lot of unused coma slurry.
But it kinda sounds like they only had, like, maybe 4, 5, like, a few months worth of food for
Yeah.
everybody. I'm
Oh.
just like, "Damn, what if they ran out of food and they were, like, 3 days from
mm,
discovering, from" I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just, like, a weight thing or whatever, but I also kind of feel like you would wanna shove as much food as humanly possible on there to give them as much time as possible.
Yeah, you would think Rylan would have had more food. It sounds like he like out, lived what they expected for all of them by a lot. Like he ate
Because it
all 3
also
people's
feels
food.
like no more than a couple of months went by with this whole thing with Rocky. Well,
Maybe it was longer. Well,
no,
a couple
it was
months.
definitely less than a year.
Yeah.
Probably more than like 1 or 2. No, it was 2 months to get to the planet, 2 months to no, 2 weeks?
Definitely
Fuck, I
less
don't
than a
remember. I'll have to
year.
read back. But it probably took them maybe even less than 6 months. But they do kind of gloss over how long it took them to breed the nitrogen resistant Talmiba. That's
mhm.
probably where most of the food went.
Mhm.
So this piggybacks off Jesse's question or train of thought. The whole book it's been saying how Rylan wants to see the inside of Rocky's ship. And let's say Rocky didn't respond and he's like, is he dead? And he has to breach the hole and finally gets to see the inside of the ship while he's dead Iridians.
Oh
And then
god.
Would he be
immediately is crushed by the atmosphere.
well, he breached the hole, it all
Oh
evacuates, but
yeah.
True,
just so he
true.
can have closure as to what happened. But
Damn.
I
yeah.
I wouldn't have been surprised though, honestly, with some of the other twists kind of at the end, the strat thing. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if he killed off Rocky, the author that is.
I have a question. Um what do you think about like Ryland's character growth? Because this chapter is pretty exemplary, of where he's at now compared to where he was. He wasn't willing to die to save his students or his planet, but he was willing to die for Rocky.
I think that's his character arc, is he found something
Mhm.
to die for,
Mm-hmm.
actually,
It's beautiful.
and was okay with it.
It was a good character arc moment, but I also kind of felt like he didn't actually have much of a character arc.
Yeah.
I felt
Kind
like
of
he did.
rushed
Because
at the end.
in the book itself, like the present day part of the book, like he's kind of just the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
So most of his growth you have to infer from reading the backstory, and it's
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
because like I'm not terribly surprised he was like a coward, I guess, but I also could have seen it going like he could, but I also see him like a situation where he would have said yes, right? But
I kind of appreciate it as his redemption arc. He had that same chance to make the same type of decision,
Yeah.
yeah,
and yeah, he made the self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like once
it
you
was
realize.
good
Go
and
ahead.
it was an arc. I just feel like the character change didn't happen like through the book. It's just something that we're told that happens.
Well, yeah, he doesn't remember he's a coward until
Yeah.
right before that.
It kind of like knocks it down a little bit. Like
Hmm. I get that.
no.
He's like, "All right, I'm a bitch, but I don't have
Damn
to
it.
be."
Well, anyway, back to this.
Anyway, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just like, hey, when you're put against gun to your head, you don't know how you're gonna react, and that's how he reacted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's very human, but he had a chance to have a do-over, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like the coward thing is Strat's opinion, and she's a bit abrasive, but I think he's just a normal dude, and most people aren't really ready to just die for others.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's
I
one
don't think
thing.
like I
Oh,
said,
go
I
ahead.
don't think I would have been brave enough to say no like Ryland, but I definitely would have felt the same way.
Yeah, but I mean, he admits himself he's a coward and all his choices that he's made and everything like that. It's one thing to just be told you're a coward, but then to think about it and be like, yeah, actually, I am kind of a coward. But it is weird that forgot his he
Personality
forgot these
almost.
traits about his personality.
Yeah. Cuz
He became a better person through forgetting.
it seems like a lot of his life choices and decisions were done on the back of like fear and insecurity and or maybe even fear of judgment or just generally being really walled off.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was a big part of, what the choices he made in his life.
Well, and I think part of it also is like, I think she even said that like part of the reason she even is doing it is because fundamentally deep down she thinks he is a good man.
Mm-hmm.
And like he even is like having a little tantrum and like I'll just sabotage it when I wake up, and she's like, no, you won't.
True.
Because you're at your core maybe scared, but a good person and will do the right thing.
She was absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wasn't a bad person. But he definitely had his faults like anyone would, and they led
Hmm.
him to live his life a way that probably was different from average or something. He didn't have any like seemingly didn't have any close friendships, close relationships, and avoided being surrounded by peers or people of equal
Hmm.
intelligence. Just like people who wouldn't
Anybody who
question him. Pretty he just
exactly
um so
anybody who would critique him or say he was wrong.
mhm.
Yeah, I felt like there was just enough foreshadowing to make that believable and a solid reveal, and he had the just right pressure cooker moment of you have 5 hours to decide if you're gonna go out in space and die. To
Yeah.
have him be pressured to make a decision that maybe he would live to regret. And this is his chance to really decide on his own what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody had a gun to his head. This was all his choice.
Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on 2029?
This is more just a small thing, but the whole book, I look at the book covers and I'm like, oh, I wonder when the book cover is going to be relevant. And I was getting to the end of the book and I was like, oh, this sucks. This book cover is just generic. It doesn't mean anything. Just some random guy in space, by a planet. And I realized, oh shit, that's not a planet. That's Rocky's ship. That's him in this chapter jumping out towards
Wait,
Rocky's ship.
hold
The
on.
splotchiness. It's not a planet. It's Rocky's ship.
I just realized that, yeah.
Damn.
I have to go look up these covers now because mine is just a bunch of dots.
Oh.
Yeah, because he mentions how he bungee jumped because it
Mm-hmm,
snapped
mm-hmm.
him back. And that's kind of what the cover looks like. Or
Yeah.
the paper cover to the hardcover book.
And that's the only time in the book he was like extended on his tether like that.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, you're right. I would have never caught that.
Incredible.
Okay, right. I'm very impressed right now.
He's like the discard mod of books.
Hey, hold on. What's your Snapchat, bro?
Oh my God. I'm too old. I've never had a Snapchat.
That's beautiful.
What the hell?
It's not my generation.
No, that no one would suspect.
Yeah, Grandpa Geraint. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Chapter 29.
I'm with Grant on the not having a Snapchat shit because I just don't take a lot of pictures.
Same.
I was like,
I
what
have
the hell is the point of this? Bye.
I have one,
Not
but it's
having
solely
it,
for
never.
people to send me pictures, and then I react to them.
Okay. Going on to the last chapter. Geraint's going to do the summary. We will talk about the chapter, and then we have some overarching book questions, and then we will rate the book. So if you haven't done your rating yet, be prepared to do that. The guides and I think it's the rules tab. But yes. Okay. Geraint, go ahead.
Okay, chapter. Whoa. Or however you say it.
However you say that.
Ryland is on Arid, slurping down a vitamin soda and eating a me burger. Somehow, he had miraculously survived with eating Talmiba. The Iridians devoted themselves to saving him. He lives in a dome with 30 Iridians constantly maintaining it. The Iridian scientists performed the second largest thrum of all time, trying to brainstorm how to keep him alive. Eventually, they were able to clone his muscle tissue and allow him to self-cannibalize and eat me burgers. Ryland is now 53 years old. The high gravity of Arid hasn't been kind to him. He uses his cane to hobble over to meeting room where Rocky is waiting on him. Rocky has the news he has been waiting 16 years to hear. Sol's luminescence has normalized. Earth has been saved. They share a monumentally epic fist bump to celebrate. After a fleeting thought of returning to Earth, Ryland turns his attention to a different appointment that he doesn't want to be late for. He hobbles over to a larger meeting room where 30 little Iridians are gathered. Ryland speaks through his organ keyboard. All right, everyone, get in your seats. Now, who can tell me the speed of light? Okay, me, what is your question? I have two questions. One, would you guys eat a me burger? And then two, would you have chosen to remain on an alien planet and be treated like a hero? Or would you try to survive the long journey home and, see people who haven't seen you for over 30, 40 years maybe? So, me burger first.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yep.
I'm okay with it.
Yes.
I'm going back and forth on it because, like, Eating Talmiba sounds like it sucks, so I would probably be desperate enough to at least try it. But I also know from what I've read that human flesh is closest to pork,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate pork.
Mm,
So I don't think it would work out for me. But I might be desperate enough to do it anyway. I don't know. I could go either way.
What's that phrase? Hunger is the best seasoning, or something like
spice.
Yeah.
spice. Yeah.
Yeah. In med school in the operating room, when they use the bovie and cauterize human skin and muscle, smells pretty good.
Oh
Just throwing it
god.
out there.
Yeah. When I had my gums lasered, I've smelt it. Yeah, it literally smells like pork.
I
That's
f-
just my gums.
I feel like I would probably eat it. I mean, you know, even just a medical standpoint, just having some
Mhm.
other form of protein that's more similar to what you would have been eating on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
The real
Fair.
question is, do they got ketchup and mustard for that
Oh
thing or
my
what?
god.
Well, they synthesized soda, so maybe.
He's got pea mustard and blood ketchup.
Oh,
Ugh.
Yeah,
did anybody
delicious.
did anybody else think that when he said me burger, that was just like a Talmiba burger, it like shortened?
Yes.
I had no idea
For
what it
about
was.
3 seconds, and then he did the reveal on it being him, and I was like, oh, well, actually, that does make more sense
Uh huh.
now that I think about it.
What did you guys?
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
okay. So, would you guys have chosen to remain on the planet, or once you saved Rocky's people, they got your ship refueled, they made you a food source, would you have tried to return home?
Yeah, I would probably try to go home after, getting all the supplies I needed. If I was there
would
as long as he was, then I'd probably be like, well, fuck it. And everybody's going to probably be dead that I even knew or cared about
Yeah.
by the time I get back.
I would probably desperately want to go home, but I think I would possibly be too afraid to make the trip to go home because, like, yes, his people suddenly have all of our knowledge, but they also, like, the stuff that they already have, like, ready isn't as good. So it would just be like, I don't know that they'd actually be able to get me back home, you know?
Hmm.
Especially, well, right now he's in his 50s, but I guess if he had like turned around and gone back right away. Um and yeah, I think the further I was away, the less likely I would be to go back just cuz everybody I know is dead.
I could imagine finally being on solid ground again, kind of feeling like I don't want to go to space ever again.
Mm,
Hmm.
Because
Same.
it's that's a yeah, and it's like you're mostly happy on Arid and fulfilled, and have a job to do and stuff. It's like, do you risk how 4 years or however long more of your life to try to go back to Earth, or do you just accept what you have here and be grateful for it? And this is just the cards you were dealt. This is just how your life will go and how
Yeah.
it will end is here on Arid.
I think just trying to be realistic in the moment. Let's say he's there a year or two while they figure out the food situation and all that stuff. Like you're living in this no natural sunlight, probably no wind, no grass, no, it's just such a terribly alien environment. Like even just being in a fluorescent room or hospital all day is like already exhausting enough. Like I'd be like crawling out the wall probably to return to Earth. I don't know.
Mm.
Well, it looks like it's like a simulated environment, no?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but it's not like I mean, how well can that be simulated?
I mean, Truman did it for like 30 something years.
Okay.
He has pretty rocks in there that he can move around.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, he does have Rocky, and he has like the people, and he has like a Earth-like biome.
He could even take an Iridian back with him. Like
True.
heck, they could drive him there. They live long enough, and he could go and do all this stuff.
true.
Monitor him the whole way, make sure he doesn't
Yeah,
die from anything.
I don't know. I mean, the way it ended is I'm totally fine with, but I
Hmm.
think that easily he could have gotten a ride home with them and developed interplanetary events and all this other cool stuff. But yeah,
Also, it sounds like he was pretty freaking sick when he got there because of
Mhm.
the amoebas not
Mm.
having any nutrients.
Yeah, like he has scurvy and various other things as well.
I would definitely want to go back home, but again, I don't think I'd actually make the jump to go home because first you got to heal from that, and then they actually have to have like an adequate space system to get you there. And then it's like if you leave too early, you don't know if Earth actually made it or not. Like, what
True.
if you get back and they're just all dead because, something happened and your beetles never made it?
Hmm.
Well, then you could just drive
Then
back
you're
with the
just,
Iridians. I mean,
yeah, but then you're just, but it's still like,
These aren't spacefaring people, The humans just
yeah.
barely got to Tau Ceti, and so did the Iridians. So there's not these things are done with not a ton of ease. And
mhm.
I mean, the Iridians didn't even know about radiation, and
I,
I think it would have been reasonable for him to wait till there was confirmation that that the sun improved, but also now he's like old, and it's like logistically, is it even worth it? Because so much time will have passed by the time he gets back.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
It'll be a
that
different
just would.
culture, different
Yeah, it
society.
would be all different.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Like that could be a super interesting like follow-up book to this, is like what happened to Earth and what Earth is like now, like after this catastrophe. I mean,
I would have liked at least an epilogue of Earth's perspective or Strat's perspective
ooh,
on it getting
yeah,
better.
like I like the ending, but I also feel like it was a little bit of a cop out on not having to determine how fucked Earth got.
Yeah,
mhm.
I would have liked to see that.
Yeah, I do. I do like that they left it open ended because I just feel like it would be a lot to go into that. Like it'd have to be another book.
It's the after credit scene for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of when Rocky was talking fluently? He was like, "Hey, your face is leaking. I haven't seen that in a long ass time."
Yeah, using slang and like talking with the right cadence and everything.
Yeah.
That was funny.
True friendship.
Yeah, I nearly lost
Mhm.
it a long ass time.
Yeah.
Oh, and once I like finished the book, I did a little bit of like just browsing on the internet, seeing what other people thought.
Mhm. I'm going to do
And
that later too.
I finally found out why he called the planet Adrian.
Wait, we talked about this last time. The movie
We did,
Rocky.
but I think I forgot.
Uh,
Yeah, it was because of me. I reached out to the author and he named
yeah,
it after.
Yo, Adrian.
No,
Yeah.
it was
Rocky's
because Adrian
girlfriend
was
in the movie.
the thing is like I think you were still talking about book Rocky, so I didn't like get it.
oh,
And it
Mm.
Didn't
wasn't
fully
until I
register.
read it on somebody else's post I was like, "Oh, the movies that I've never watched
oh,
and forgot."
yeah.
Yeah, he's a girlfriend or
Adrian.
wife to Rocky.
Yeah.
Adrian!
Like I know it's one of those things where like in theory I know what Rocky the movie is, but I never actually watched them, so I just don't think about it. like
I know
ever.
the concept of Rocky. Don't know what it is. kind of.
It's like a yeah, beats people up,
Something with a
whatever.
staircase in Philadelphia. I don't know.
He's got slurred speech. Might be drunk.
Eats a lot of eggs.
There's
You got
an
one of those.
actual statue. Sorry.
One of the songs from the movie was only created because they couldn't get the rights to that other song that they wanted.
Eye of the tiger. Burn, burn. Okay. What was your question, Toaster?
Oh no, mine was just the commentary on Rocky's Rocky
Speech.
talking.
Yeah, no, it was heartwarming to know that they must have spent a lot of time together over those
Yeah.
years. It's a way of saying that without explicitly saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't say question at the end anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do
I also imagine Rocky wearing a leather cool jacket when he's, visiting him.
Oh god.
He's got a pompadour now. He's got fake like a wig.
Oh
I
god.
wonder what Iridian clothes are made out of.
He said it looked like burlap. So I
So
wonder
maybe
if
some
it's like
fiber,
something
resistant
fibrous
fiber.
material.
Yeah. It'd have to be
Because it
not
doesn't
flammable.
sound like they have anything that could give them leather, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
As much as he would rock that leather jacket.
Rocket.
Okay, let's do the 10 overarching book questions and then we'll do our ratings. So the first question is Andy Weir is known for his commitment to scientific accuracy in his novels. Did you find the science in Project Hail Mary believable, and did it enhance your enjoyment of the story or make the narrative more complex? Were there any plot holes you noticed? Marlon pointed out a plot hole earlier. What did you say, Marlon?
I don't know if it's actually a plot hole, but
Potential plot
just
hole.
the whole, Talmiba eating his ship fuel and doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yet they
it
couldn't
was,
isolate
they
it.
were only available 10 kilometers further down in that atmosphere and didn't, naturally migrate anywhere else in that, but were, surviving and migrating into a fuel.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the connection to real world scientific like calculations and facts, and
Mm-hmm.
whereas it gets a little fantasy at some point, which is inherent in a sci-fi story, I did like how much of it was grounded in real life studies and science. I think that does make it more relatable and helps to like solidify, oh, this could happen, you know.
Yeah, I definitely think that by using what real science that he knows definitely helps makes the fake science more believable. But there was still a few like fake science things that just kind of made me go, "Mm, I don't know, buddy."
Yeah.
Neutrino storage, of course. things like that. But it's like you guys were saying, rooted in enough known science. You're like, yeah, sure, I can accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
I mean,
didn't stretch it that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is kind of spoilers for my review at the end, but I thought the science was really well done. I thought it was very believable in a lot of ways. A lot of thought was put into it. But there were a few things that were hard to swallow, and even yeah, I mean, even making a 10-kilometer long chain link sampler was kind of a ridiculous plot point. I mean,
Listen,
honestly.
there's a reason we have a lot of chain link fences, okay? They're very, supportive. They work,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the Iridians being unaware of radiation, a little sketchy. Ryland being able to speak Iridian speech so quickly, a little sketchy.
Yeah, that's true. I thought about that once, but I was like, I suspend my. What's the phrase? I suspend my.
My disbelief.
Yeah, I was like,
Suspend my belief.
just put that over there.
And then, Ryland and Rocky. Rocky's a little too perfect in a lot of ways, and Ryland's a little too much of a jack of all trades knowledge in a lot of ways. And a little part of me died every time he said, "Junior high teachers know weird things like that." I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
the
But
lift-off Newton thrust of a turbojet. Yeah, sure thing, man.
But it did balance it a little bit because he was wrong a lot too. He made
Yeah.
mistakes. He just was a little like headstrong and maybe too forward with his like I know everything.
Also, I think he just like fell back on the teacher thing sometimes because he didn't remember everything else yet. But a lot of the reason I think he knew some of this random stuff is because that part of his knowledge Strat said wouldn't be affected by the amnesia.
Yeah.
So he knows obscene amounts of information relating to astronomy stuff, astrophysics stuff,
Yeah.
from all the years, well, maybe not all the years, but however many years, like 2 or 3 or whatever, that they were working on the project, and you learned all this astronaut stuff. And so some of it, I'm sure, comes more so from that place, but for a lot of the story, he really only remembers that he used to be a teacher, so he just assumes like, "Oh yeah, that's how I know this, sure." I mean,
definitely learned that being a teacher, not
yeah.
from studying astrophage
Maybe some of it was
or
even in
whatever.
jest as well. Like maybe some of the times he was like, "Teachers know this," or middle school teachers know this. Maybe some of that was a little bit in jest too.
Yeah. Because I mean, how is he going to explain to Rocky? Well, you see, I did help with this big long thing I don't fully remember.
Okay. Second question. Similar note to the first one. Were there any scientific concepts or technologies explored in the book that you found particularly fascinating or challenging to grasp? I thought.
um,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You were going to speak.
I was just gonna say all the neutrino stuff I thought was really cool, like the energy storage stuff. I've never really cared or known a lot about energy storage stuff, and I think this book actually made me interested in it and excited for like what comes next, in our lifetime, like after lithium batteries and where that's going. Um, as well as the Xenonite stuff, and that was never fully explained to us, so that's probably the part that remains challenging to grasp. But yeah, I never really thought about or cared about material sciences either, and I feel very intrigued by that now too.
Yeah. The thing that surprised me the most was the propulsion using light, because that's like a
Mm,
real concept. I didn't know about that prior to this book.
yeah,
I thought that was really interesting. That just even the smallest bit of light gives you, microscopic amounts of thrust.
like a
But
flashlight in a vacuum, I
yeah,
think was what they said.
yeah, but it's calculable, which is kind of crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's really cool. I didn't know that either. Anyone else have any sciency, technology, whatever things that they thought were cool or confused them, challenged?
I mean, I thought the whole idea of the astrophage was really cool, and I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know what Earth did with them after blast off,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but we'll never know. Only in our dreams.
Mm,
Which I don't know. I mean, I do think sometimes that authors do overshare and that leaving
Hmm.
things to the reader's imagination is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I am in my heart of hearts a nosy bitch. So please
Sequel,
just tell me.
sequel. Maybe we'll get one. We'll see.
I feel like ambiguous endings are great for horror and they're great for like fantasy if it's like a hopeful,
y-
ambiguous ending. But for something like this rooted in so many facts and guaranteed results, it would have been nice to see, oh yeah, it
y-
worked.
Well, you do get Soul's luminescence, and so
Mm-hmm.
humanity pulled through,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
they'll eventually be able to adapt astrophage to make paradise on Earth for the most part. Unlimited
Yeah.
clean energy.
true.
It's
What's
just just getting into all that at the end of the book. I felt like I'm fine with the ambiguity.
yeah, I just want to know what happened to Strat.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, she probably. I mean, could have gone either way. Could have, got killed out of anger, or imprisoned, or vindicated. Yeah.
Became worried, went into space to look for Ryland.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay. The third question. How did the alternating timelines between Ryland's time on the spaceship and his memories on Earth affect your engagement with the story? Did you find it effective in building tension and suspense?
I thought so.
Yeah, I liked it.
He did
I
that
thought
goosebumps thing a lot.
Yeah. I thought it was a little bit too convenient because amnesia doesn't work that way, but unrealistic amnesia is just kind of par for the course in books and media, obviously, so I can't rag on it that hard.
It was magical medicine amnesia. Yes, not regular kind where you hit your head on
I
something.
want this French drug that they're talking about. I don't know what I would do with it because honestly, like, why? But fuck it.
Commit a
I
great
want it.
crime and give yourself amnesia, and then when they try to question you, you'll pass every polygraph test.
True.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What was your question again, Toaster?
The question was, how did the alternating timelines between Ryland's time on the spaceship and his memories on Earth affect your engagement with the story? Did you find it effective in building tension and suspense? Yeah, this is partly in my review later, but I feel like, Andy Weir did basically what was in the Addie LaRue book we read, except like a better, more cohesive job. Like we didn't spend too much time, in one particular zone. I felt like, I liked the reveals and the buildup of suspense. I thought it felt good.
Yeah. Same. I liked a little bit of sentimentality, but the way he ends a lot of chapters is the way like Goosebumps goes between chapters. Kind of like a sudden cliffhanger that's immediately explained in the next chapter, but it's like woo. But I like that whole like, and then the lights went out, type
Oh
of
God,
thing.
Rocky.
Yeah. I wake up to 5 mechanical arms stripping my clothes off.
Oh, Jesus.
Fist me, Ryland.
Rocky will watch.
Oh, God. Okay. Anybody else have anything to say about that question on the alternating timeline spacing in the book?
Enjoyed it.
Okay. The fourth question is so Geraint noticed this, and I didn't notice. I don't know if anybody else noticed it. It says discuss the projects and the novel's name. Why do you think the project to save Earth was given the name Project Hail Mary?
Oh, easy. They didn't know if it would work, and it was a big investment for something that could potentially fail.
Yep.
Which is a Hail Mary pass in football.
Yes.
Which my family's a whole bunch of heathens, so the religious connotations are kind of lost on me. But I am familiar with the Hail Mary pass in football, despite the fact that I also hate sports. So that's kind of more what I associated it with.
Same.
So
Now, sorry, good.
So I was gonna say, so I'm gonna read the Hail Mary prayer. Okay. So listen carefully. It's actually hilariously clever. Okay, so this is the prayer.
Right in the beginning.
Hail Mary, full of grace. The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of the womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. So the first line, Hail Mary. The ship is Hail Mary, and it's literally full of grace. He's in there.
I
was
have a
clever.
feeling that was one of those things where he just saw an opportunity and took it. Like, I could do something really funny right now. Or cool.
Yeah, I did think Grace was a weird last name. That's not a common last by any.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a first name.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I had the same feeling that his last name was Grace.
Yeah.
It's usually like a feminine first name, not usually a last name, but
I kept wanting to
Well,
call him Grace Ryland because that sounds more like a
hmm.
name.
well,
Uh-huh.
I've got a lot of friends that have two first names because, well, their last name sounds like a first name, and then my
Hmm.
last name's really weird anyway, so that part didn't phase me too much.
Like Jackson Jackson.
Yes.
Or our
Switzerland
friend Joy
Jones.
marrying a person with the last name Courtney. So she just has two first names now, I guess. Like,
Excellent.
Ricky Bobby.
Okay. The fifth question. Why do you think Strat did not tell Grace that he was the tertiary science specialist at the
That's
beginning
my
of the
question.
project? Do you think, well, here's the part that I guess is unique. Do you think it would have made a difference if she had? What do you think would have happened if she had? Think he
If
would have
she
ran
told him
away,
what?
maybe? What'd you say, Kel?
If she told him what?
If she did tell him that he was the
Secret third candidate with a
yeah,
color
early
resistant
on.
machine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
for all of her conniving, I don't think that was her original plan, like she tried to say it was.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think she was justifying a lot when she was explaining it to him.
Mm-hmm.
Not wanting to admit.
Like, I don't doubt she thought that at some point, but I don't think it was her original thought, even once they found out that he had the genes.
Hmm.
I don't think it would have made a difference. I still don't think he would want to go.
Yeah.
Do you think he would have
He
tried to
just would have
escape earlier?
probably.
I think it would
Part of
have
me
made
thinks
things
that's why.
more difficult because he would have tried to escape, so he would have been under house arrest, so he probably would have refused to train, the people that were supposed to do it. And then Yao would have known that he didn't want to go, and then blah blah blah.
How much earlier on was that?
We don't really. They're not super clear on how long it was
Hmm.
between the astrophage and the launch. Like, it's got to be at least a couple of years, but
Yeah, it's kind of just in snippets, so it's hard to say when he found that out versus when they were launched. Had to be at least 6 months to a year before, I would guess. Because they're assembling the team and have to get all the people and train them and speed.
Also, Jesse, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was gonna say, I feel like that's part of the reason why she didn't tell him is to give him less time to muddle on it and like get anxious and make a cowardly move.
Mm-hmm.
True. Because it may have been an ace in her pocket type of thing. Ace
Mm-hmm.
up her sleeve.
And maybe, I don't know, to protect himself, maybe he would have done his training more poorly or something. He's like, oh, look me, I'm incompetent, can't send me, wee wee. Like something
or
like that.
maybe did something drastic, like just like, I don't know, killed himself or something. Like, that's something
Yeah.
that people do when they get desperate.
But, she did. He was inherently a good person, so who knows? Maybe he
Well,
wouldn't
yeah,
have
I
done
don't think
anything.
he really would have done that, but I do think he
Yeah,
would have made her life more difficult than it had to be.
in some way, for sure.
Okay. Question 6. Do you think Ryland's amnesia drugs acted as a rebirth for him? How do you think the story would have gone without the drug-induced amnesia?
I think we talked about this a little bit already, but the second part's a good question. If he woke up alone with everyone dead, remembering what just
Oh,
happened,
God. His mental would have been
Yeah,
fucked.
yeah,
completely.
probably would have
Yeah, sorry.
tried to turn the ship around or something. I don't know.
Well, when you read stories about how people who have made big changes in their life, like they've overcome addiction or they've had like a big like personality swap, the one thing that they kind of all have in common is that they felt like they believed they had the ability to change. but they also kind of had the circumstances that allowed them to do so. So I
Mhm.
think that by not having his memory, he didn't have that holding him back, which meant he could push himself to do those changes even if he didn't realize he was making changes.
That's a
Whereas if he'd had his memories, he might have been more hesitant.
That's
Mhm.
exactly what I was thinking as well, is like, he was able to continue on without like the weight that he had tried to make, a really selfish cowardice decision, like, even to send the completely undertrained other scientist in his place who
Mhm.
could have never done all the stuff he did. Just anything to save himself. And yeah, I think it was probably really important for him to not be held back by, I guess, his moral and ethical failing in that moment, because I think it would have tinged um, a lot of what happened without it.
Yeah. Who knows how petty he would have been, or how much of the anxiety or stress of those memories would have played into him making mistakes.
Yeah, it's like he woke up confused, but slowly figured out, it's like, oh, I must be an astronaut, or like, oh, I'm an astronaut, I'm
The
important.
pedophile.
No. And just like remembering good things that almost like made him feel good about himself, and proud about himself, and like confident, and like, well, they sent me, I must have been, I must be here for a reason to do something good, without
Yeah.
remembering the specifics.
Something I noticed is she says that drug is supposed to last 2 weeks, right?
Oh, is that what she said? Okay.
Something like that.
Mhm.
That it gives amnesia for up to 2 weeks. Or
Mhm.
um, he didn't have all of his memories back for like 3 months more.
True.
You know, I wonder
Yeah,
if the coma affected that.
True. Could have been a combination there, not just the amnesia drugs.
2 weeks is probably an average anyway. Some
Yeah.
people
He's
would
a
take longer, some would take shorter.
he's a slow metabolizer.
Maybe. It was a
Maybe
new
they
drug.
gave him an extra big dose just to be sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Question 7. Rocky said that they were both good people because they were both willing to die for others, but we later found out that Rylan didn't choose to go. Compare and contrast differences between Rocky and Rylan's circumstances.
Yeah. This one sounds pulled straight out of an SAT prep.
Yeah, like Jesus.
I wrote this one myself, actually. So I
You said compare and contrast. That brought up terrible
Mm.
memories.
someone draw 2 circles right now. um
I need a Venn diagram.
so for this one, I was thinking of like even who they were before. Rocky was like or not Rocky. Ryland was like a lone ranger type, wasn't really close to anyone. Meanwhile, Rocky seemed, he has
Hey.
Adrian, and who knows how else he's involved with his community or whatever. But Rocky chose to go on this mission with, all 23 of them went on this mission, assuming they would return. Whereas Ryland's mission, they sent them accepting and assuming, well, yeah, that they were going to die, period. That's interesting to think, what does that mean? Like a difference between like humanity and Iridians is that Iridians wouldn't have sent them to die intentionally
Yeah.
anyway, whereas humans were willing to. Now, there's different time frames we're working with as well. Humans had less time for our
Yeah.
particular environment. Um, but yeah, when it's told to us that Ryland didn't choose to go, I was like, damn, because they connected on that before.
Yeah. He assumed he chose to go.
Mm-hmm.
That he would have obviously made that decision, right? You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, there wasn't many options for humanity in terms of like if they could bring people back. They didn't have time. Whereas the Iridians did. They lived, what, like 900 years? 700 to 900 years or something was the average lifespan?
And their environment wouldn't be compromised for longer as well.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other thoughts on how Rocky and Ryland are similar or differ?
Mine are all pretty similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's a
I-
rock.
I do kind of
Damn.
wonder about the different like makeup of Rocky and his race because, well, the reason they went into a coma in the first place was because the humans would go crazy and kill each other.
True.
So what is it about the alien physiology that means they don't do that? Because these guys were like, well, you're gonna be there for 12 years because they didn't know about the time dilation. Please don't kill each other. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Maybe they're a little more socially dependent. Also, they
Well,
had
they
a
did
bigger
say they had
ship.
to watch each other. Yeah, they had to watch each other sleep, and
Yeah.
so sleeping in shifts and having that many people. They didn't think they were taking that big of a risk because it was kind of uncalculated. Or they didn't account for everything because they couldn't.
No, what's that one quote that I've seen with the? Oh yeah, there's.
I took a
It's with
calculated
the.
risk,
It's
but I'm bad at math.
yes, that one.
Yeah,
I-
I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it usually has like a bird
yes.
image.
Okay. Honestly, I'll just ask the next question. Question 8. Did you agree with the character's decisions in the face of life or death situations? Why or why not? I feel like we've discussed
talked about
this.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question 9. Consider the resolution of character arcs and the overall message of the book. Did it leave you with any lingering questions or reflections? I guess we've discussed
Yeah.
our things we would like to know.
Yeah.
We've discussed
Like
that.
honestly though, with as doomery as everything is in real life recently, it's really nice to read something that's, optimistic.
Yeah.
Happy ending.
I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was the way that they wrapped it up.
Yeah.
Just not maybe the ending everybody hoped for, but still a happy ending nonetheless.
It's your typical bittersweet sci-fi ending.
Damn.
It could have been perfect, but nothing's ever perfect. It worked out in the best way it could have.
Oh.
Logically.
Okay. Here's the last question. Hollywood is making a movie version of the book with Ryan Gosling playing Ryland. Which scenes do you hope are included in the novel or in the movie from the novel? How do you think the movie version will handle the Rocky character?
The fisting scene.
Oh
I
my-
hope that.
Yes. The mistaking fist bump for fisting, definitely. That's gonna get some chuckles from the audience.
They're gonna have to give Rocky a English voice. I mean, no
No,
one's gonna read subtitles.
Damn.
I think there's gonna be like a speak and spell esque translation for him in the like because I think that's how he understands him. Well, at the beginning is through the tones that the computer reads and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. They'll probably adapt that part to make it more palatable for people to watch it.
Maybe.
I mean,
oh,
Rylan does most of the talking.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people these days who just watch things that are subtitled because that's just their normal, and then lots of weebs who watch things like subbed anime. So I think just like having the noise there and having it subtitled isn't like the worst option.
No, definitely not. But I definitely know some
But I
older
could
people.
definitely see them changing it, yeah.
I know some older people who are like, I don't want to read when I watch a movie. I'm like, okay,
I could
let's calm down.
I could
Sorry.
imagine them starting off like when they don't understand each other, that it is just you know, all that stuff. And then as
Yeah.
Ryland understands more and more, like the slows down and becomes just like musical words or something
Mhm.
like that. I don't know. It will be pretty interesting how they figure out how to do that.
I mean, that makes sense because he says he eventually under point, and the book is mostly first.
Well,
So if the book is mostly first person,
Mhm.
movie will probably be first person also,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of that would be a clever way to do it, I think.
I think they're gonna bang.
Oh God.
He's gonna show him rock and roll.
Lay an egg for me, Rocky.
I would really appreciate if they somehow find a different problem other than the 10-kilometer chain link problem and solution, you know.
It could be. Maybe they adapted to the elevator thing.
I don't know. They probably have to get their ship down into the atmosphere and it barely survives, or you know,
Mhm.
Rocky makes his night heat shield to kind of survive part of it, or something along those lines. I just feel like the 10-kilometer chain link thing is just so ridiculous that I don't know.
I want to see 30 minutes of that.
Yeah.
Most of the movie is just putting the chain together. Good God.
Is
I
it
guess
time for reviews? Oh,
I was
sorry.
gonna say they probably will do the sign where he barfs in, or the scene where he barfs in his suit. Also, yeah, the scene where like Rocky risks his life to save Ryland. Probably gonna
Oh
cry,
yeah,
especially if they do it good. Lifts a chair
I feel
off
like
of
that's
him.
essential,
Yeah, that'll be good.
or a different way of saving him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do the ratings. Geraint, if you want to start off, since it was the book you picked, and then I have Amarillo's rating that I can read, and then poor Tina is sick. She has lost her voice, so I will read hers as well, and then we can go, I guess, down the order for everybody else in the Discord.
All right. I gave the book an overall score of 9.6. For writing quality, I gave it a 10. I thought it was really well written. It was never distracting. The science was believable. The humor was really enjoyable. The dialogue was really enjoyable. The nuance to Rocky's speech. I mean, there's so many things I just really enjoyed it for just from a writing aspect, and so I gave that a 10. Personal enjoyment, I gave it 10. I loved the space theme. I really like physics and space in general. The human survival theme, coupled with what I thought was a really well done amnesia reveal to Ryland's kind of dark moment of cowardice. I thought that was really well done, and I really enjoyed that twist. Like, I did not see it at all, and once it was there, I was like, that makes total sense. And I really loved Rocky. I really loved all his scenes, all his interactions and dynamics. He came across as a little too perfect sometimes, but otherwise, I loved his character. Plot development, I gave a 9. Overall, I thought it was a great plot, great story, a great medium with the astrophage to use as the plot device. But I already said this, but I was distracted at times, like the chain link fence problem, the radiation problem, Ryland's understanding Iridian speech, and the whole, teachers know everything kind of gimmick. But otherwise, I gave it a 9. Character development, I gave a 9. Again, I really loved Ryland's cowardice arc and then redemption arc afterwards. I thought it was a great character growth moment in a book where it was hard to show character growth, He's at the peak of his career and he's already been trained supposedly to do all these things. So it was a great way to give that type of character development. Rocky on the other hand really had little character development, but I was fine with that. And I do feel a little debated by Strat not telling his coma genes, and the reason for that. But and then I guess finally the whole nationalities, cliched stereotypes, was
Yeah.
a little on the nose, distracting, but overall 9. And then theme message, I don't know what the message of this book was, but as a theme, an enjoyable tale of humanity on the frontier of space, using silence and alien hijinks for survival. I thought it was a 10, so I give it a 9.6.
All right.
That's fair.
Okay, I will read Amarillo's first. So for writing quality, she gave an 8. And she says, I really enjoyed Andy's way of writing. He did a great job of making the more scientific elements feel approachable and understandable to an audience who doesn't have an in depth, nuanced grasp of how the fuck space works. For personal enjoyment, she gave a 9. She says, while I usually don't find myself picking up sci fi to read, I found myself really enjoying the book's plot and characters. My only small complaint is that the writing style was missing some of the usual prose and lyrical style that I truly love. Hard to balance that with all the technical jargon he had to put in there. For plot development, she gave it a 7. She says, very well executed plot, though not entirely perfect. There were some portions, specifically in the flashbacks, whose pages I wished would have been given to more exploration into Rocky and Ryland's friendship and struggles. That one scene in court, as an example. For character development, she gave a 6. She says, I feel like Ryland was a pretty solid character right from the get-go. The reveal in chapters 25 or 26, if I'm remembering correctly, about him refusing to go and drugging him anyways, came a bit late into his development to make much of an impact on me personally. The shock value was there, of course, but the Ryland we had spent the majority of the book with had already come to terms with the fact that he was on a suicide mission, so it didn't leave much in the way for personal development. For theme/message, she gave an 8. She says, space is cool and scary, and the resilience of human spirit are tried and true messages if there ever were ones. I really enjoyed Andy's optimistic take on both, that humans will work not just together when humanity is on the line, but also with cute/weird space octopi spiders to save their own planet. The total score was 7.6.
Okay.
And then for Tina, she gives the writing quality an 8, the personal enjoyment a 9, the plot development a 7, the character development a 7, the theme/message an 8, and her average is 7.8. For a dislike, she says, and she says this humorously, for someone who didn't want to revisit my high school trauma, science and scientific terms were not my strong suit. And I've had to pull out my phone more to Google words and had Murph explain to me like a 5-year-old how some of the process goes. But this was the only dislike. Other than that, I've really enjoyed the book and hope to read more of these in the future. Also, Murph is planning to read it on Audible or listen to it on Audible as well. Okay. Adrian, would you like to do your rating?
Yes. So similarly to Geraint, I gave writing quality a 10. There was a lot of points in the writing that I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Googled it and found out it was real. I did like the first person perspective of the book from Ryland's perspective and just him kind of learning about everything. And just I mean, of course, character arc stuff comes later, but I just like the way everything was put together. I did laugh out loud a few times at some of the things that happened, which doesn't often happen. Even the Stephen King book, I didn't really have any moments that I was like, haha, that's great. And if a book can make me laugh and still be pretty well written, I enjoy that a lot. Which goes into personal enjoyment. That I gave that a 10 also. I actually found it hard to put the book down, and it didn't feel as so much of a chore to read as some of the other books we've read. You know, it didn't bother me to read it because I was actually very interested to see what happened next. For plot development, I gave that an 8 because I just feel like I don't like the whole flashback way of storytelling. You know, it always kind of distracts from what's going on, and they made it work well in this book, but that was probably the only dislike I had about the way the plot's laid out. Um, in terms of the character development, I also gave that an 8. I thought, yeah, Rylan was a pretty good character from the start. He didn't get all that much development I did like all the moments with Rocky and like the friendship development of the characters and all of that. But Rylan, him finding out he was a coward didn't really have a lot of weight to it, as it could have if he was like scared the whole time or not confident in himself. But he was a pretty confident and smart guy through the whole book. So I think that was just unneeded as a twist. And then the theme and message, I gave that an 8 also. Space is fun, aliens are fun. It didn't really break ground with how the plot advanced. It was, a happy ending and, global destruction imminent, save the world type of theme. It's been done a lot, so it's nothing unique, but I did like it overall. And let me add all that together. I gave it an 8.8
All right.
overall.
Okay. Jesse, would you like to share your rating?
Yes. For writing quality, I gave it a 9. It was it was done really well, like the science stuff, in that like I have a cursory knowledge of a lot of science, but not like delve deeper. Math was a big wall. But he wrote it in such a way to where like I believed it and like I understood it to a certain degree, and I like that a lot. And also, I mean, there were some points where I kind of just like nodded along, like, yeah, that sounds right, and I'm not going to dig deeper. But like, it's good in a way that like it made me do that. Like, it was believable enough to where my monkey brain was like, that sounds good. And so I like that a lot, which goes into personal enjoyment, which I also gave a 9. Um, this was the first book in a long time that I had a real hard time putting down, and I really enjoyed the almost learning aspect along of it too. Like it almost felt kind of like this would be a book that I would get assigned in school, be upset about it, but then at the end be like, all right, you did well, teacher. um Plot development and character development, I gave both an 8, and they kind of tie in together. I thought Ryland's character development I agree with what Amarillo said, that it kind of came a little bit too late for me to really too strongly change my opinion of Ryland. And everything my big annoyance with Rocky was that there was a certain point for me where he kind of became like a living, breathing 3D printer for the story.
Mm.
That's fair.
And like it didn't annoy me enough to where like I still loved Rocky. He was probably my favorite character over Rylan. But like he got used a lot for that. Like the story kind of hand waved some of the difficulties of engineering over to just, oh, Rocky will make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think someone said it earlier that Rocky was a little bit too perfect. And so I wish that he had kind of had some more flaws other than just not being good at science. Like I get that there's an over specialization, but it was a little too far for me. Theme and message. I've always loved science fiction, so space, aliens, having to solve some problem, Earth at stake. Classic. It's classic for a reason, and it was done really well. So I also gave that an 8, with a total score of 8.4.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. Kel, would you like to share your rating?
Yep. So I gave writing quality a 9. Thought it was pretty solid throughout and pretty easy to follow what was going on beyond most of the science, where occasionally I was just like, all right, that sounds believable. I'll take your word for it, I guess. For enjoyment, I give it a 7. I like sci-fi. I thought it was decent. Didn't do like anything super special, I thought, but it was all right. For plot development, I gave a 9. I actually liked the flashbacks, and I thought they added more to Ryland's character as the story went on. Um, Also, I thought the language barrier and overcoming that was pretty cool, as well as learning more about the astrophage and potential solutions for it throughout the book. Character development, I gave a 7.5 because, like others have mentioned, there wasn't much development coming from Rocky.
Mm.
There was, like, we did learn more about Ryland and character develop a little bit, although a lot of that came from flashbacks. And then for theme, I gave it an 8. I thought it was alright, and I thought a lot of the emphasis on science and mathematics behind it all was interesting, but potentially hard to follow or off-putting for a super casual reader. Yeah, overall I give it an 8.1.
All right. Marlon, would you like to share your rating?
I give the whole book a 9.2. I
Okay.
think probably for me one of the best books, if not the best book I've ever written. I think one of my favorite things is like astrophage as a concept of, the first alien life, slash threat in the universe was very interesting. But I did have to deduct points for no romance between
Mm.
Grace and the onboard ship,
Oh my god.
robot. So
Well,
I give it a
I
solid
have
9.2.
a wonderful website to introduce you
Oh,
to.
God.
Uh,
All right. Any other comments, Marlon, or is
That's
that it
it.
for you? Okay. All right. Marvelous, will you share your book rating?
Okay. Writing quality, I gave it an 8. I really enjoyed it. I think he was very good at getting your attention and keeping your attention, and I liked the way he described all of his science bullshit because it was, again, understandable for people who don't have a whole lot of science knowledge or have, like a little bit. Um, but there was something about the way that he wrote it that I kind of wish there was maybe sometimes like a little bit more or said in a little bit different kind of way. Like nothing that's just bad, but just like I felt like Amarillo, where there's just a little bit where I just kind of felt it was missing just a little bit of something.
Mm.
A personal enjoyment, I gave it a 9 because like literally like we'd get out of book club and then I would go read the next set of chapters and then go to bed, which I haven't done that in a while. Like I just really liked it. I don't like sci-fi. I think most sci-fi gets too caught up in their stupid, boring ass spaceships and their stupid one like a lot of sci-fi is like a mile wide but an inch deep, where
Hmm.
you think where it puts on a great show of there being like a lot of stuff, but when you really start to like dig into it, there's really not a lot of depth at all. So I typically only like sci-fi where they're not like focusing on that stuff and they're more focusing on like one single aspect, I guess. I don't know
Mhm.
how to explain it. Uh Plot development, I gave it an 8. I really liked how he did it. I liked like I said, I liked that it was just believable enough. There, there were times where I think maybe like where I just couldn't buy into the fake science that he was selling us. Um, but I mean, when you have to make shit up for a book, that's just always the risk that you run into. And in this case, it just didn't happen to do that for me in a couple of places. But like, I still really liked it a lot. It didn't really ruin my enjoyment or anything. It was just, I don't know. Maybe I would have liked it more if he did his fake science in a different way. Character development, that was kind of the only thing I really dinged him on. I gave him a 6 because a lot of the characters are really one-dimensional. Rocky literally could have just been replaced by a golden retriever with thumbs. Like He's
Mm-hmm.
really just kind of like this cheerleading sidekick most of the time. Um, Ryland in the present, he doesn't really change from the beginning to the end. Like when you take just him being in the present, we only know that he changed at all because of the reveal in his flashbacks, which didn't quite so that just didn't really sell the character development to me. And then of course with a lot of the other characters, we don't really spend a lot of time with them, so they don't really get a chance to grow. But they do also seem a lot of them were pretty stereotypical for like the Canadian and the Russians. And actually, I think Dubois was the only one that wasn't super stereotypical, or at least not stereotypical in the way that you would expect him to be.
He's stereotypically autistic.
uh, Theme message. I gave that a 9 because again, it was really nice to see something that was optimistic about humanity. Humans are cool, space is cool, banding together to solve problems is cool, aliens are cool. Um, I really liked the book. I probably won't read it again, and I don't mean that in a bad way, just and I don't think that I personally would pick this up to reread it. So, and I think when you average all of that out, it ends up being an 8 out of 10.
All right.
So, pretty good. I liked it. Would
Excellent.
probably won't read again, but like I don't think I would complain if I had to for some reason.
All right. And now I will do my book rating. For writing quality, I gave it a 9. I thought it was a very good mixture of high scientific literacy and personability. The fact that Ryland was a science teacher for children carries through in that the author tried to make a lot of heavier concepts more understandable. And while there are moments where you can get a little lost in the trenches, like mathematically and scientifically, the author took care to make sure a detailed understanding wasn't necessary in order to follow the plot. I also enjoyed the first person perspective as well. For personal enjoyment, I gave it a 10. I thought this was a great story that covered a lot of really complex, primitive human experiences in a very non primitive context without over focusing or dissecting them like psychologically. We experienced fear, grief, loss, but also friendship, love, and sacrifice. It was a deeply emotionally touching story nestled into an intense space survival story. I feel like Andy Weir did a good job of leading us to really big feelings rather than like taking us there and telling us to feel them. For plot development, I gave it a 9. I really enjoyed the back and forth in time telling of the story and the slow reveal of the truth, like how everything happened. It felt timely and appropriate. I didn't feel like we were stuck for too long in any particular aspect of the story. It kind of reminds me a bit of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but feels more cohesive and consistent when it comes to pacing. For character development, I gave it a 10, even though there wasn't a lot going on with Rocky. My main focus was Ryland's development, and I felt like the story and what Ryland goes through, produces interesting, complex questions about what makes us us. Kind of like the amnesia question of like him basically being freed from like his cowardice or sins of his past and how that impacted who he was ultimately able to be. But I thought Ryland's character development was really good and very human and realistic. He went from a disconnected, emotionally superficial character who made big life decisions based off fear and insecurity to a person who was more secure and more purposeful and had emotional connections so deep he was willing to make huge sacrifices to protect them. And for the theme / message, I gave it a 10. I thought the message was kind of divided into 2 parts for me. One was the survival aspect, is like never give up, you're capable of more than you think, and just the power of the will to survive. But then the other aspect was the emotional connectedness. Vulnerability and love can bring out great nobility in us. And there are unlikely friends around many corners in life. So my average score was 9.6. And overall, I just really love like existential hidden emotion stuff. Like I said earlier, that makes you feel big things just from the writing and the scenarios the writing creates, that just aren't like day-to-day situations that people would have to face. But yeah, that's my rating. Okay, well, that was a whole last book we done read.
Yup.
Next week we have a break, and then the week after that we will have our first meeting for the next book, which is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I will post the schedule for that book by next Wednesday. And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay.
But yes, GB. Yeah, it's GB, everyone.
GB.
Yes, definitely very GB.
Added to the shelf.
Oh, yes.